Welcome to Bibles, Babies, and Banter. I'm Cassie.
I'm Sarah. In this video, Cassie is going to share her testimony. We're going to talk about her life. Yeah, her life before she knew God and how she came to find Him, and how her life has changed ever since meeting Him and giving her life to Him. Yeah. And he's very talkative, so if you can't hear us, I will put on some captions where he's babbling.
Yeah.
Stick around for Cassie's testimony. So, what was your understanding of God and faith growing up?
So, when I was a kid, again, God was not prevalent in my home. My parents didn't really talk about it. It wasn't a conversation that we had. They didn't teach anything about it. I did have friends of different religions growing up, and when I would spend the night at their houses, they would take me to church with them sometimes on Sundays. But I was a kid and I was more interested in hanging out with my friend, so I never paid attention. I just didn't really have an understanding of Him. I knew what God was. I knew that what people that went to church and believed in Him is that He created the world. But I didn't understand the details of Him.
Yeah.
The deepness of Him. It was just an awareness.
Was there a specific event or a season, like a time in your life where you started kind of questioning what you knew about God?
Like before I really had a relationship with Him?
Yeah.
So, there was a long time in my childhood that death was terrifying to me because I didn't understand the whole Christianity, believing in God, and I was afraid that we were like computers, that when we died, we just didn't exist anymore. We were just done, shut down. And it was terrifying, especially since I had a family member die when I was younger, and I just didn't understand. And Mom said they went to heaven, but I didn't really get that because, again, we never had those conversations.
Yeah.
So then as I had a little bit more experience, even still as a young child, there were things that happened to me that I couldn't explain.
Mm-hmm.
And my head would kind of try to be logic about it, but I started to wonder if there was something after we died. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah. So looking back at like your childhood and like before you actually had a relationship with God, are there times that you can kind of see where He was a part of your life, or that like there's evidence of Him?
Oh yeah. There was a lot. Now that I know what it looks like to have His hand in things, there were a lot of things that I ignored. Mostly in like toxic friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Even toxic relationships. There were so many signs in the relationship that I had before I got married that I chose to ignore. And I could tell now that it was like God flashing a neon sign that I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I don't know what's over there. In fact, the biggest thing that I thought when I realized those things were there was the day that I got married, from the morning till the ceremony, which was like around lunchtime, I started to have like this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it just kept growing each hour as I got ready.
Like the don't do this,
do this. And I thought I was just nervous.
Yeah.
And then I remember standing in the courtroom and thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't think I want to do this. But then all of our family was there, and I felt bad.
I felt stuck.
Yeah, and I kept thinking, no, you love him. It's fine. You've been together for so long. You're just scared. It's a new thing. And then my aunt had gotten us a hotel room for our honeymoon night. Mm-hmm. Like, I was so nervous to be alone with him after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we entered the hotel room, And a thought just flashed through my mind, like, do you regret this? So I looked at him and I said, do you think we made a mistake? And I saw his face drop, and he was like, no, I love you. I'm so glad we got married. And he looked so hurt that I said it, that I felt so bad. Yeah. So when he looked at me, he's like, why do you? And I was like, no. I was just making sure that you were good. But internally, it was like, kinda.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and then, like, there was signals right before everything happened that when we got divorced that I just completely ignored. And then even with my kid's dad, there were signs that he was trying to, toxic friendships that I had. You know, it was like he was trying to say, okay, your journey with them is done. It's time to move on. Because there were things out of those things that I learned from, that I grew from. But I could tell definitely when he was like, your growing's done. It's time to, you know. So there are things now that I see, but I didn't see them before I understood what it was.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see it now.
So when you finally like experienced God for the first time, was it kind of like a mountaintop experience? Was it kind of a gradual process where you kind of started to see him and you're like, oh, maybe this is a real thing?
So it's kind of funny because it's both.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense. But the day that hit me like a freight train was the birth of my son. Mm-hmm. Because the whole time I was pregnant, I was so scared of being a mom. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not as close with my mother as I would like to be. And I was terrified of projecting that onto my kids. Yeah. I don't remember a lot. They put him on my chest, and there's a video of me bawling, talking to him that I don't remember. Mm. And then I had the epidural, so he had to go to the NICU right away, and his dad went with him. And then I had to wait for my feeling in my legs to come back before I could go and see him. It was just me. It was the middle of the night, and I got to go to the NICU, and they wheeled me in there because my legs were still a little bit numb. And they put him in my arms, and he had an IV and stuff in his arm. And I started to say hi to him, that it's mommy, and he smiled his first smile. It was probably gas, but
it meant something.
It meant, like, in that moment, my whole world changed, and it was like, this is the most magical thing that's ever happened to me. How could there not be a God? Mm. But then after that day, because I was new to any kind of thought like that, I kind of just shoved it off, and I was too scared.
Yeah.
And then it was like other things that kept happening that slowly led me to him, and me being less cautious, and me being less, oh no, you know?
Yeah.
So it was both, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. My uncle and my aunt were part of this church, and I wanted to go with them. They offered for me to go. When I first started going, my youngest son was itty bitty, and I was struggling with their dad. We were struggling to connect to each other, and I was going faithfully, and every time I would go, I would pray that he would get better, that we would get better, that he would want me, that I would make him happy, that, you know, I would just pray about him and our relationship constantly. Yeah. And it was funny because the more that I went, the more that I started to understand. The prayer shifted, but I didn't know it. It became more vague and less about him specifically, but to make me happy and to be with somebody that loves me. Yeah. It became more vague. And then as I grew in my journey and I realized, you know, that something was off and we weren't happy, that relationship ended. And then I just prayed that I would eventually find a man that, first I prayed that I would love myself first, because there was a lot of damage done on both sides. But then eventually, you know, I wanted to be with somebody that would be good to my kids, that would love me the way that I deserved, that, like, all these things that I had wanted for so long. And then Austin came, and he was everything that I prayed about that entire time. Mm-hmm. Everything that I asked for change and everything. During that time, I changed. And I honestly believe that God had a hand in that, because I was so broken and so stuck. And then as I kept asking him for help, you know, I felt like I'm not getting any answers. He's not getting any happier. I'm not getting any happier. But things were changing. It just wasn't happening the way that I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And things changed the way they needed to happen.
It's usually how it goes with God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I changed as a person because I got stronger and less content with being unhappy.
Yeah.
Every time that I thought, I can't do this, I was scared I was failing my kids for giving them a broken family. But then I became more aware that it was worse that I was giving them a broken mom. And me following the path that was laid for me healed me to be a better mom. And he had a hand in that. So it changed me and changed the way that I thought about things, and I didn't even know it. It just happened. Before I left, I got pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty depressed. It got to the point okay. It got to the point that I didn't leave my bed.
Yeah.
My boys would, and it's so sad because I look back on pictures and there's so many pictures in my room on my bed of like a crucial time for them. I would leave my bed to get more diapers and snacks for my son for the day in the morning to feed him. And then I wouldn't leave my bed. I didn't get up. I barely took care of myself. I barely showered. It's disgusting. And I just gave up. And I constantly felt like my kids deserved more. And then the only thing I got ready for was church. And then it was like I didn't give up anymore. It was like I had hope for change. And then I learned that the change that I wanted wasn't going to be the change that I got.
Yeah.
And so it made me a better mom. And it's hard to look back on it because I feel like during the time I failed them. But I will never be that person again. It changed a lot. It gave me the strength to leave. It gave me the strength to look at myself and say, this isn't it. This isn't your path anymore. You can't do this. And without that strength, I wouldn't have left. And I'm honestly scared of what I would have done because I had just given up.
Do you remember specifically the day that you gave your life to God?
I've been going to church for a few weeks. And there's this lady that goes to the church that I go to. And she always just seems to know when somebody needs a little extra prayer. And I hadn't really talked to anybody about what was going on. And she, in the middle of worship, came up to me and said, "Can I pray with you?" And she starts praying. And the things that she's saying, she started praying for me to find joy, for me to be happy within myself, for like everything that related to me. I mean, just almost down to small details. And no one knew what was going on. I did not talk to anybody. And I just started bawling. And as I feel all of a sudden something on my back, and I'm just too busy bawling. And we get done, and I turn around, and there's a group of women behind me with their hands on my back. They all just kind of hugged me. And I just sat there, and it was like, what is happening? I was just in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And then she grabbed my hand and pulled me back to my seat. And I just felt peace. And it was just that kind of moment where I was like, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I need to be.
So how has God transformed your life? Like, in what ways, since before you knew him and after you gave your life to him, what are the biggest changes that you've seen in yourself?
I feel lighter.
More
You know,
peace.
before I carried everything on my shoulders, and now I feel like I'm not alone in it. There's hope. I feel hopeful. And also, now that I have my faith in him, I feel a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a reason that I'm here. He has a path for me, and I have a purpose.
Yeah. Have you seen God's influence in your life with the way you parent before and after?
Yeah. I have always had a temper and short fuse. And I used to get overstimulated a lot quicker. And I've learned from a very toxic environment that it's better to walk away for a few seconds and take a deep breath. And I had to do that a lot more when the boys were little.
Mm-hmm.
I had to just be like, "Ah, okay, you're good. I need to take a minute." But now I don't always have to take a minute. I can just take a deep breath, and then my mind's like, they're little,
Reset.
they don't understand.
Yeah.
Stop. Don't do that. So it has definitely helped with just in the way that I interact when I get frustrated or I feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Has there been a specific Bible verse that you've kind of leaned on or latched onto?
So there's actually two. One for anxiety and one for when I really needed to believe in a love that was healthier.
Mm-hmm.
The one for anxiety is Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand.
I love that one.
The second one for knowing what would be a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love takes no delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and also always perseveres.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle because I've been in so many toxic loves that there are parts of me that are toxic that I have to unlearn.
Mm-hmm.
Austin shows me that verse every day. He's always patient. He's always kind, even when he doesn't need to be. Actually, that happened this morning. It was such like a smack in the face, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in an environment where a lot was expected of me. I was expected to be, seen and not heard, child type stuff. And a lot of perfection was put on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. With Austin, I do struggle to have like expectations from him.
Yeah.
Of like being perfect or something,
Yeah.
And so when he forgets something or he loses something, it frustrates me so bad, and I'm not always patient. Well, this morning, I go to drop the kids off at my mom's.
Yeah.
And I forget the bottle warmer. And I left early so that I could go get a coffee because I'm exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I turn around now, I'm not going to be able to get coffee. So I call Austin. I'm like, hey, can you meet me at the coffee shop and bring me the bottle warmer? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he hops in the car and he meets me there. And he was going to leave. He had only like 30 more minutes and then he was going to have to leave for work.
Yeah.
So I said, what are you going to do now? He goes, I don't really know. I don't want to go all the way back home. And I said, okay. And I feel really bad because I messed up his morning. So I leave and I'm just sitting there going, I feel so bad. So I call him and I said, do you want to get breakfast? You can get yourself something to eat. He's like, no, I don't really want to spend money. I don't really know what I'm going to do. And it ends up that he ends up having more points for McDonald's. He's I'm going to get a breakfast sandwich.
Yeah.
And we get off the phone. So I'm driving and I go, I probably would have done the same thing for him. And, it's fine. And then my mind goes, no, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. You would have brought him the bottle warmer, but you would have been so frustrated over the fact that it ruined what you wanted for your morning. Mm-hmm. And you would have totally taken that out on him. You would have been irritated. You would have been short with him. You would not have been that patient, that kind. Because he was not frustrated with me at all. He wasn't rude to me. It was like I was being humbled by God. Because he was just like, dude, no, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
This is what you would have done.
Yeah. Be
better. And it just...
Total conviction.
Yeah, it was like, I need to be better at that. Because he is so... patient with me. God was sassy. Okay, he was like, "That's not what you would have done," and I was like, "Okay, you're right."
So, as a newer Christian, what advice would you give? What advice would you give to someone who feels like they are too far gone to have a relationship with God or come back?
I can tell you without a doubt that I love my children so much that it doesn't matter a thing that they do or say, I will never stop loving them. There may be things that they do or say that I am disappointed in, that I don't agree with, but I will never stop loving them no matter what. And that's just a taste of how much love that he has. Yeah. Again, I struggled with the relationship that I had with my parents for a long time. And so it's hard for me to understand that until I became a parent.
What is one thing, if you could, like knowing what you know now, if you could go back and talk to yourself before you knew God, what's one thing you would tell yourself?
To have patience with myself and not be scared. And I would tell myself that he's present. You're just not looking at the right things. When my uncle passed, I struggled with that relationship because I didn't understand why. And I struggled again when I met Austin because I see the hurt he has about the passing of his mom and the decisions that he had to make because of it. I took a hit, my relationship with God, because I love him so much. To see him suffer was awful. But then we had our daughter, and you see his mom in her. Her smile, her laugh. In all of our daughters, you see her. And then it's like, no, we're not going to understand his plan. I don't understand why things have to be painful and hurt. There was a quote, when we weep, he weeps. And that comforts me because he grieves with us. Even though he knows his own plan.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out, who kind of feels like overwhelmed, like you did?
In church, I didn't understand because I didn't understand what they were talking about. And there's so much information. It's okay to not understand. Start praying and talk to him. Get comfortable communicating with him. Building the comfortability of leaning on him. Because I struggled with that. I struggled giving things up to him because I dealt with things on my own for so long. That having that faith that he was going to have it was so hard for me. I didn't understand how to do it. And I still struggle with it, with big things. So start with little things. Talk to him. Because at the end of the day, he's with you. And that's the point.
He meets you where you're at.
Yeah. You're not alone. Whether that's with God, with other mothers that feel that with you, you're not alone. Be patient with yourselves. You have a God that will love you through anything. You have a community. At least here you do.
That's our goal. Thank you for sharing. I know a lot of that was hard to share, hard to talk about, but that is what we're here for. We're here to show the raw, the real, and that God meets us where we are. So
thanks for listening to my journey. If you have any questions or comments or advice or you need anything as far as some support, please let us know in the comments below. And we appreciate you joining us on our journeys through this channel. We're excited to see where it goes and the community that we will build and the support system that we will build for people. So with that being said, until next time, mamas.
Good job. Look at these chicken eyes. Look at these chicken eyes. I love you. I love you. Are you sharing your testimony? Yes.
Is it powerful?
Yeah.